Hey, what's up guys? Bajheera here. For this Blade and Soul video, I'm going to be taking you guys through some 1v1 arenas on my way to 1550 as a destroyer. This is going to be much less of a guide rather than sort of my experience, because I am still very new to Blade and Soul, and even though I'm having a whole lot of fun with it, and have been able to do, I guess, okay so far, I definitely have a lot to learn. So this is definitely going to be from a beginner's perspective, but hopefully, if you guys decide to play Blade and Soul and you're new to the game like I am, some of these beginner tips and insights will be helpful to you. Okay, so early on, as a destroyer, I felt like fighting assassins was one of my easiest duels. That has changed a lot as I've progressed through the rating system. Even just closer to gold, which is around 1600, assassins start to play a really long, drawn-out sort of chip away at you style, where they kind of rage starve you and really never let you attack, and it's your job to sort of find openings. And what I'm doing against this assassin right here is I'm using a strategy that I liked a lot when I first started playing, where rather than setting up for big damage wombo combos, I was sort of, just taking what my opponents gave me in terms of grab opportunities. So I'd usually just try to get a hold of my opponent, do some damage with my little grab and smash tactics, and then I would throw them up in the air and finish them off with a pile driver, and that usually would do a pretty good amount of damage. And every time I'm landing a grab against just about anybody, you can see I'm always walking them towards a corner. Because this game is, positioning is pretty important. If you can keep them in a corner and prevent them from using any sort of abilities that they can, like, backstep or sidestep, then you can use, follow-up abilities to keep them in stuns, to keep them in, daze effects, and really get a lot of damage on them. So what you're seeing me do here, as I'm grabbing them, I'm throwing my fire down on the ground while pummeling them as well, which is going to obviously do a little bit of damage, do a little bit of healing to me as well. But mainly, what it's going to do is put a stacking damage debuff on them, which basically makes them take a ton more damage from all my abilities. So whether I decide to throw them on the ground and animation cancel attacks on them, or I decide to pile drive them, either way it's going to do a fair amount of damage. And basically what happened against that guy is I was able to catch him fairly consistently in my stun combos, rather than him, obviously playing the outskirts of the duel, never really letting me get attacks in, as assassins do later on. But if you guys are just getting started with the game like me, here's some tips that you can do. And what I'm doing in the beginning is probably not the best thing to do, as I've learned later on, is I'm popping my major defensive cooldown right off the bat and leaping on top of them. I guess what I was trying to have that do was prevent CC on me and make me take less damage right off the bat. But what a lot of assassins are going to do, which is actually a good thing for me, and at least what this guy's doing, is he's using a lot of his escapes right off the bat. So he's getting out of my crowd control in the beginning of the match, but he's leaving himself open for combos later on, which is the sort of thing I'm going to set up. So I go for a little pile driver right there, but he's able to break out of that. But right after that, I'm able to stun him, get a few good animation cancel attacks on him, which is going to deal a lot of damage. As a destroyer, what I'm learning is the animation cancel combos are where you do most of your damage. The trick is to be able to set those things up. And as you'll see, as a beginner player, I'm more reliant on my stuns into grab combos, just because it's a little bit more consistent for me, and it's a little bit more assured damage. Because if they don't have any way to get out of your grabs, then you're pretty much guaranteed damage, and it gives you a chance to control the fight, put things back in your favor. At least that's what I'm trying to do. But when I talk about animation canceling, people who are new to Blade and Soul, when you're seeing me do the sort of horizontal attack followed by the vertical attack back to back, and they seem to be going really fast, that's two abilities that one generates resource, one spends resource. And the way that works is if you click your left click twice, then your right click once, and you do that quickly, it ends up canceling the animations while giving you both the resource generation and the damage from both attacks. So one of them, like I said, it'll spend the resource obviously for one of them, but if you can chain them together, it allows you to do it a lot more often and do more consistent damage for over a longer period of time. So that's one of the things that I've been practicing recently. But I still, just in terms of my playstyle, I really like the consistent sort of bread and butter damage of the knockdowns or the stuns into a grab, into their damage reduction, into a, throw them up in the air, that deals damage too, and then pile driving them after that is a very consistent chunk of damage. Now what's really cool about that is you can follow that up with some animation canceling as well. So once again, you're going to see me pop my big defensive cooldown right off the bat, and immediately attack into his parry, which is not a good move for me. But I'm also able to have him attack into one of my abilities that allows me to throw them up in the air after they attack into the ability. So it's kind of like a counter move. And that's one of the abilities that I've tried to incorporate into my rotation a lot. Another ability that I've tried to incorporate into my rotation a lot, and one that I really need to keep in mind at all times, is the X ability. That's the one that just crit for like 7.7k. That does tremendous amounts of damage, and you can talent it to make it deal even more damage when your opponents are stunned. So, you know, obviously, chaining that into part of your burst combo can deal tremendous amounts of damage, and that's one of the things that I would say is maybe a little bit more of an advanced tactic, weaving that into your big animation canceling combos, but that's one of the things that I'm working on as well. So right now, we're whittling this guy down, which is good, but basically, I'm needing to look for some good opportunities to kill this guy, because my trinket is down for another 20 seconds or so, and the way your trinkets work in this game is that you use it to break out of stun effects or any, it's like, there are particular moments where you can trinket. You can't just trinket anything anytime. Like when you're knocked up in the air, like I won't be able to trinket, but luckily this guy died to like a bleed or something. So he was getting some work done on me, but it was a little bit too late. Against Blade Dancers, there are a few things that sort of confused me early on, and things that you might want to look out for is, obviously, when they're spinning, especially right at the beginning, that can act as a parry, which will stun you. So right there, he deflected it, and he stunned me, and kind of like a noob, I instantly trinketed the stun that I put myself in, which is not as good. They also have effects where, if they have like a little sword spinning around them, that's the time where they're going to be able to resist all your damage. So keep an eye out for those things, and beyond that, you know, when they're not spinning, you can try to catch them in some combos. So he stopped spinning right there. I went for a grab. The grab didn't work, but I was able to sort of evade out of that. But now he's caught me once again in a stun combo, which could be problematic for me. I'm able to escape from that. I do get him to attack into my little counter ability, which is I can chain immediately into a pile driver, since it does throw him up in the air. But if I do grab him again, I won't be able to pile drive him immediately, I don't think. So just gotta remember that if you're gonna sort of sort that into your combos. I know that pile driver has a little bit of a cooldown, but what I'm also gonna do in this whole video right now is I'm beginning to experiment with my spin to win technique. I know it's a very ancient, passed down from generations to generations, you know, really highly skilled maneuver, but your Q as a destroyer can deal a lot of damage. And one of the things that I like to do is you talent it so that you can Q spin indefinitely as long as you have rage. And whenever you pop your E ability, your Fury ability, which is one that was a defensive cooldown, you can pretty much spin for a long time, because that ability gives you rage as well, or mana. So for some people, especially early on in the game, they're not going to know how to deal with that. They're not going to know the abilities that can knock you out of it, and they're not going to know necessarily just to run away from you during that time. So they kind of just flop around and end up taking tons of damage. So whenever you need kind of like a cheesy chance to get a ton of damage on somebody, use that. You don't necessarily have to use the E combo, but especially if you're defensive spec, you can use the EQ combo and just spin on somebody forever, and it puts you in a really nice position. So there's some classes that are really tough for me, and it's like, you know what? I'm giving you guys the cheese treatment, because I'm gonna get some damage on you as any way I can, especially against Kung Fu Masters. I felt like early on, as a destroyer, Assassins were probably my easiest battle, and then Kung Fu Masters were one of the toughest. So they have a lot of ways to stop your damage. They have a lot of immunity effects, and they have a lot of abilities that give them just permanent like immunity for a while, like just resist your damage. So it can be difficult to find openings to deal damage. Luckily against this guy, I was able to find some openings to deal some damage. Land a nice, you know, step back into leap back into knee to do some animation canceling to finish him off. But that's one of the things about Kung Fu Masters, and one of the things about Blade and Soul in general. If you find yourself getting frustrated and start trying to like go too offensive and not really worry about timings and just kind of face roll, you're probably not going to do very well. And that's one of the cool things of this game I actually like a lot, is that you do have to always play sharp. And if you don't, then you're going to get wrecked. So this guy, right off the bat, one of the things I was doing to Kung Fu Masters, because they annoy me, is I was just leaping on top of them with my damage, or with my defensive cooldown up, and just blade something on top of them with all the rage that I get. So I did that. I think it pissed him off that I was doing the little spin to win thing on him, so he trinketed, which means that now he has no breaks for any of the damage cooldowns that I have, none of the combos that I'm doing to him, so he basically just gets wrecked that second goal. So the spin to win is not only effective in terms of chopping up their health pool, but I bet it really pisses players off too. So if you can get some rage trinkets out of them, and they use their CC breakers on some of your early stuff because you just blade storm them for half their health, then sometimes you can catch them in some pretty gnarly combos, which is one of the things I like the Destroyer for. So how those combos work, at least how I've been doing them, And like I said, whenever I'm talking about this kind of stuff, I'm not a Blades and Soul expert. Just trying to learn the game, and I'm having fun with it. So how I've been doing some of those combos is you basically want to get a few animation cancels in while they're stunned, and then you have tons of stuns at your disposal to keep those combos going. So I told you guys that this was a session that I was experimenting the most with the spin to win. I was really pushing the boundaries of the spin to win technique, and it got me a lot of cheeky victories, or a lot of damage dealt at least. So this guy is already kind of pissed about how much damage I dealt to him. I think he's just like halfway AFK. Like he seems to be a little disheartened, but I would never really give up on the fight, even though they're not looking so good. So I felt like this is probably one of my best sessions ever, by the way. I really felt like I was in control. I finished him off with a headbutt there. I was experimenting with a lot of my abilities. I was remembering to use the abilities that I needed to. Everything was on point, but I do want to get back to what I was saying before, is if you find yourself getting frustrated and trying to sort of force stuff, that's a situation where things start going really poorly for you. Which is why I sort of chained it in with that discussion. It makes a lot of sense to me now. I'm just sort of rolling with this commentary as I go, but as important it is for you to keep cool, that's why sometimes doing that little spin to win thing is pretty funny, because it really tilts your opponents, I feel like. Now, of course, the spin to win technique will lose effectiveness as you progress in the ranks, because people know how to deal with it by then. But early on, it definitely can get you some cheeky wins, especially when you're just sort of starting off. But against this Kung Fu Master, I kind of messed up my spin to win technique right at the beginning. So right now I'm going back to a more classic style, and I'm trying not to attack, obviously, into his stuff. Oh, by the way, you're gonna see my weapon saying it needs repair. You don't need to repair your weapon in PvP. And what I heard about yesterday is that a lot of players will find like just a random weapon that they don't really like, or I guess they're not the one that they're using for PvE. And what I'm thinking is you probably pick a weapon that looks cool. Like you get like a cool transmog weapon from like a dungeon and use that weapon for PvP, because it's not going to give you any bonuses anyway. So you're just using a weapon that you like the looks of. And that way it doesn't break down your weapon that you need for PvE later on or whatever. So that's a good tip. But anyway, what I'm doing against this guy right now is trying to find openings in his defenses. And, you know, it can be tough against the Kung Fu Master. Luckily, he attacked into my counter there right there at the end. So I was able to get a nice little bit of damage with my pile driver. But out of that, he's going to knock me up into there and try to land a combo on me. Luckily for me, I have my trinket, so I'm able to get out of that grab, stop him from healing off of me, hit him with a bit of a Q spin, into a knee, into an execute. So that worked out pretty nicely at the end. Again, the main thing against Kung Fu Masters or classes that have a lot of sort of blocking counter abilities is patience. You need to find ways around their defenses. But by patient, I don't necessarily mean passive, because obviously, if you just give your opponent, you know, any sort of control that they want, it's going to be an unfortunate fight for you. So you have to pick your battles, have to pick your spots, have to pick your moments, and capitalize on those. So once again, this next duel we're fighting an assassin. As I said, assassins have usually been, when I first was getting started, a pretty easy duel. They do get a lot more difficult later on, and I'm sure that I'll have more videos showing you assassins who later on decide to play the long game. But right now, some of the assassins, maybe around 1500 or so, if you can get a hold of them, you can usually do a lot of damage and sort of throw off their rhythm. But like anything else, it is about getting some of their CC breakers. This guy is using Frost Bomb, and Frost Bomb basically, it just kind of puts the match in pause for a while. You can't really do anything. You're not going to generate any resource. Luckily for me, I didn't use my little Fury ability before Frost Bomb. What a lot of them will do is you use Fury and they'll Frost Bomb you, so that obviously you can't make use of that big cooldown, and you don't get any rage from it either. But right out of the Frost Bomb, I was able to catch him in that EQ spin to win combo, deal a lot of damage to him, and he's kind of exposed right now, so I'm going to catch him in a stun. I was hoping to be able to grab him, but no, I had no energy for that, so now I'm going to have to auto attack a little bit, get some energy, try to catch him in some chain stuns. He was able to sort of escape my knockdown there, so he did use one of his immunities, which is good for me, but I didn't really get a chance to capitalize off of that. So I'm going to throw my shield up right now. He's trying to create some distance. I'm going to make use of that to heal myself, but I'm also able to leap on top of him, get him in a stun, and I'm probably going to be able to just about finish him off in that throw, except he had his trinket available for my throw. So, and he ice bombed me at the same time. That's actually kind of good for me, because I really couldn't do anything during that duration where he trinketed and blinded me. But since he ice bombed me again before my spin, I'm able to just spin on him. He comes back in to try to, I guess, you know, stop my spin. I'm not sure why he attacked me again. It's like I said, a lot of players don't seem to know how to deal with that right just in the beginning. So He basically doomed himself by charging into my spin there. But assassins who play Frostbomb can be really annoying. But like I said, early on you can take advantage of the openings they provide you. Because a good assassin and a good Kung Fu Master especially basically feel like you have no chance to attack them. But that's not the case. That's one of the things I like about Blade and Soul, is that when situations seem like a class is OP and there's just nothing you can do against it, usually, and by usually I mean all the time, it's just a matter of you needing to get better. And I like that a lot. This game is a very balanced game. It's just a matter of how well you play. So when you're stomping people, you should feel good because, you know, in most cases you're not necessarily outplaying them. Like, I don't know if the spin to win technique is necessarily outplaying somebody, but it's making use of something they don't know how to deal with. And it's not the fact that the mechanic is just broken, it's that they're just not pressing S twice and running away. Like, it's just basically how that works. So when you find yourself in this tough situation, you can have the confidence that, not that like you're bad and you should feel bad, but you can know that if you improve, if you practice, if you learn, then you can overcome that obstacle. And that's a cool feeling to have when you're playing a skill-based game like Blade and Soul. But that's going to bring us to the end of this video for now. Plenty more on the way. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.